I suppose you could say this particular royal historical story, well, could the royals have truly had it all sewn up? As ever, let me explain. Good to see you on this autumnal, wintry day here in the very heart of the United Kingdom. And as many people can tell, yes, the lurgy, as somebody pointed out the other day, Neil, I haven't heard that expression for years. I know, I don't know what the people call it now, but you know, it is the lurgy, isn't it? It's the sort of thing that creeps up on you. And now a lot of people, very kind, have been saying, Neil, where's your scarf? Where's your hat? Sorry, let me explain this. I'm one of these people, you know, that's permanently warm. And honestly, you know, when people say, aren't you cold? You think, no, not really, you know. And if I put something on like a hat or a scarf, I don't know about you, then I'm absolutely boiling. And sometimes I wonder if you give yourself more germs the other way, you know what I mean? Are you? Yeah, because some people I think are just naturally warm, aren't they? Naturally, I don't know, temperature body, I don't know. But I tell you what, when everybody else is freezing, I'm thinking, I'm boiling here. And then you start to worry, don't you? Yes. I know you shouldn't go down that route. That is a worry, isn't it? Let's get back to your royal story of the day. Now, this story really caught my eye simply because it gives you an idea of exactly just how powerful the British monarchy were and still remain, in fact, to this day. You see, when you think about it, when the very young Princess Elizabeth and the dashing Prince Philip, of course, soon to be the Duke of Edinburgh, popped up to Clydebank on October the 30th, 1947, something rather spectacular happened. A new sort of run-of-the-mill factory visit, that sort of stuff. And when you think about it, I've often wondered this, it must have been far more exciting back then because people didn't see the royals the way we do today. We can flick on our screens and watch various bits and pieces. And then, of course, even in our era, we watched them really only on television, didn't we? Or if they were lucky enough to come to our area, you might queue up and see them. Now you get this massive sort of onslaught of, well, you can see them wherever they go, wherever they visit, that sort of thing. But this particular visit was rather unique because it set something in motion that really did help a business around the world. Let me explain. Now, where it gets interesting with this is, as I say, Clydesdale, October the 30th, 1947. And there we have the beautiful Princess Elizabeth alongside Prince Philip. And they've just been given, all thanks to visiting this particular factory, a Singer sewing machine. Now, who remembers those? I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I remember an elderly lady that we used to go and visit. And she had one of those, you know, with a cast iron treadmill on the bottom. Do you remember those? And they must have been worth a fortune because when you think about it, you know, they were very heavy, took a lot of people to bring them in, didn't it? And they were only seen for the elitists. You know, you had to have a lot of money to have a Singer sewing machine. Now, this particular company were very, very shrewd. See, if you remember, they decided to, well, bestow as an early wedding present a Singer sewing machine on the very young Princess Elizabeth. And as you can see from this particular picture, they found this highly amusing. And now one might wonder, of course, whether Princess Elizabeth had in fact used a sewing machine before. But apparently doing a little bit of research, in fact, yes, they did have one. Simply because during the war they did the make, do and mend, as many people did. But what really developed was simply this. You see, once that story had got out, and this was really where it got interesting, then everybody decided, well, if she's getting one, I need one. You know what it's like, young married couples, I want one of those. But of course, they're very expensive. What they decided to do was make various models and stuff like that. Now, where it got really tricky, and you can understand this when you think about it, is that the company, well, was so thrilled at the publicity that Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip had bestowed on them. They said, would it be possible to have maybe a picture of the, you know, the wedding present at Buckingham Palace? Now, this was politely refused, and it was for this simple reason only. The royals could not be seen to endorse any brand, even though it was a very much well-loved brand. And the bottom line was their idea to try and get this picture was simply this, that they said, well, look, after the war, people are really struggling. If we could sell more of these, this would still help the war effort, the clothing shortage, the rationing, all that sort of stuff. Very commendable. Let's not forget, though, that Queen Elizabeth really had her own dressmaker in the rather flamboyant Norman Hartnell. Now, one can imagine, of course, that Norman Hartnell was very, very, shall we say, peeved at the idea of people turning away from his couture house in New Bond Street and decided to run up their own frocks at home. So consequently, she was in a very difficult position. But in a more serious topic, it's interesting to see how companies, even back in 1947, were looking to capitalise on the opportunity of the connection with the royal. There were no pictures allowed, of course, or indeed any association in their marketing regarding Princess Elizabeth and the ideal first wedding present. Not for want of trying, of course, but this simple association and the fact that the company alluded to the fact that the young Princess Elizabeth was make do and mended, of course, Prince Philip's old clothes, did a lot to make sure that people rushed out to buy them. And it's a little bit like a story a few years later. Way back in the sort of middle 50s, 57, Marilyn Monroe came over to London, and very quickly a company bestowed on her some bicycles that were used by the royals. They didn't even get a chance to give her the bicycles, they just parked them outside and took a picture. And apparently the tagline was, if it's good for the royals, it's good enough for Marilyn Monroe. Proof, of course, that the royals are good for business, whether they consent or not. Neil Sean, Kensington, London.